We welcome you to this Thursday evening Tenebrae service. Tenebrae is the Latin word for shadows. In remembrance, we are invited to walk the shadowed path that led Christ to his death on a cross. This is a journey marked by pain, fear, and despair, the loss of hope. Tonight, we remember the day our hope was buried. As we follow Jesus on this journey and recall the steps he took to reclaim us, to redeem us, we will experience a growing darkness. With each passing scene, light will be extinguished and the room will become darker and darker. Finally, there will be only one candle remaining, the Christ candle. Then that light too will be taken from us, and we will be left in complete darkness to wait for the dawning of Easter light.
Shadow of Passover. On the first day of the festival of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus and asked,
"Where do you want us to prepare the Passover meal for you?"
He told them,
"As you go into the city, you will see a certain man. Tell him, 'The teacher says, my time has come, and I will eat the Passover meal with my disciples at your house.'"
So the disciples did as Jesus told them and prepared the Passover meal there. When it was evening, Jesus sat down at the table with the 12 disciples. While they were eating, he said,
"I tell you the truth. One of you will betray me."
Greatly distressed, each one asked in turn.
"Am I the one, Lord?"
He replied,
"One of you who has just eaten from this bowl with me will betray me. For the Son of Man must die, as the Scriptures declared long ago. But how terrible it will be for the one who betrays him. It would be far better for that man if he had never been born."
Judas, the one who would betray him, also asked,
"Rabbi, am I the one?"
and Jesus told him.
You have said it.
As they were eating, Jesus took some bread and blessed it. Then he broke it in pieces and gave it to the disciples, saying,
"Take this and eat it, for this is my body."
And he took a cup of wine and gave thanks to God for it. He gave it to them and said,
Each of you drink from it, for this is my blood, which confirms the covenant between God and his people. It is poured out as a sacrifice to forgive the sins of many. Mark my words, I will not drink wine again until the day I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom.
Then they sang a hymn and went out to the Mount of Olives.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall I won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
Shadow of denial. On the way, Jesus told them,
Tonight, all of you will desert me. For the scriptures say, God will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I have been raised from the dead, I will go ahead of you to Galilee and meet you there.
Peter declared,
Lord, even if everyone else deserts you, I will never desert you.
Jesus replied,
Peter, the truth is, this very night, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times.
No, no.
Peter insisted,
Even if I have to die with you, I will never deny you.
and all the other disciples vowed the same. Lord, have mercy.
Christ, have mercy.
The shadow of grief. And they came to an olive grove called Gethsemane, and Jesus said to his disciples,
Sit here while I go and pray.
He took Peter and James and John with him, and he began to be filled with horror and deep distress. And he said to them,
My soul is crushed with grief to the point of death. Stay here and watch with me."
He went on a little further and fell face down on the ground. He prayed that, if it were possible, the awful hour awaiting him might just pass him by. And he said,
"Abba, Father, everything is possible for you. Please take this cup of suffering away from me. Yet I want your will, not mine."
Then he returned and found his disciples asleep. And he awoke Peter and said,
"Simon, are you asleep? Couldn't you stay awake and watch with me even 1 hour? Keep alert and pray, otherwise temptation will overpower you. For though the spirit is willing enough, the body is weak."
Then Jesus left them again and prayed, repeating his pleadings. Again he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping, for their eyes were very heavy, and they didn't know what to say. When he returned to them the third time, he said,
"Are you still sleeping? Are you still resting? Enough! The time has come. I, the Son of Man, is betrayed into the hands of sinners."
We were completely exhausted. It had been a long day and an even longer week. We'd been feeling kind of unsettled for the last while, as if something big was about to happen. Jesus had been so focused lately, so committed to moving forward towards something significant, but we had no idea what that would be. That night in the garden, I knew I needed to pray like Jesus had asked, but it was so late, and I was so tired. Even after being woken up by Jesus a couple of times, I still could not keep my eyes open. If only I had known what was about to happen. If only I had known how much Jesus needed my support in his hour of grief and struggle. Lord, have mercy.
Christ, have mercy.
Shadow of betrayal. While he was still speaking, Judas arrived with a mob armed with swords and clubs. They had been sent by the leading priests and elders of the people. Judas had given them a prearranged signal.
You will know which one to arrest when I greet him with a kiss.
So Judas came straight to Jesus.
Greetings, teacher.
He exclaimed and gave him the kiss. Jesus said,
"My friend, go ahead and do what you have come for."
Then the others grabbed Jesus and arrested him. Jesus said to the crowd,
"Am I some dangerous revolutionary that you come with swords and clubs to arrest me? Why didn't you arrest me in the temple? I was there teaching every day. But this is all happening to fulfill the words of the prophets as recorded in the scriptures."
At that point, all the disciples deserted him and fled.
I don't know when it happened, but somehow things changed. At first, he seemed so strong, so confident, so certain. I had such high hopes for him. We all did. Finally, here was a leader to throw off Roman oppression, to rid us of their corruption. But just when the time felt right, at the height of his popularity and influence, he withdrew. He became quiet, almost sad. I saw him staring over Jerusalem with tears in his eyes and slowly turn away. It was a mystery to me. Why wouldn't he act? So I thought a bit of a push would help him to reach for the greatness that I knew was his. Pass on a bit of information about his movements, and then watch him rise to victory when they came for him. And the 30 pieces of silver they paid me could be used to do so much good. But it didn't work out like I thought it would. He didn't offer them any resistance. He let them take him. "You'll betray me, Judas," he said. I wonder how he knew. I thought I'd covered my tracks so well. Now they've taken him. I certainly didn't expect it to turn out the way it did. Lord, have mercy.
Christ, have mercy.
How deep the Father's love for us, how vast beyond all measure, that He should give His only Son to make our wretch His treasure. How deep the Father's love for us, how vast beyond all measure, that He should give His only Son to make a wretch His treasure. How great the pain of searing loss! The Father turns His face away, as wounds which mar the chosen one bring many sons to glory. Behold the man upon the cross, my sin upon His shoulder. Ashamed, I hear my mocking voice call out among the scoffers. It was my sin that held Him there until it was accomplished. His dying breath has brought me life. I know that it is finished. I will not boast in anything, no gifts, no power, no wisdom, but I will boast in Jesus Christ, His death in resurrection. Why should I gain from His reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart: His wounds have paid my ransom. And oh, how He loves us so. Oh, how He loves us. How He loves us so. And oh, how He loves us so. Oh, how He loves us.
That was a dark night. We didn't expect those terrible things. Perhaps we should have foreseen it, prepared for it. He had been talking so cryptically about his future, it just didn't make any sense. But if we knew what was going to happen, then we would have reacted differently and stood with him through it all. But we didn't understand. So there we were, fast asleep. We were oblivious to his pain. We didn't hear his agonizing prayers. And suddenly, he's waking us up. And there is Judas. He came back, and with him were armed soldiers. And the soldiers arrested Jesus. We were outmatched. There was nothing we could have done. I was scared, and I was confused. I was devoted to him. I believed in him. Wasn't he who he said he was? Then how could this all be happening? I know he's not a violent man, but we have seen his power. Couldn't he have done something? Couldn't he have stopped this? How is this a part of the plan? All the hope that I was hanging on to shriveled up and disappeared in that moment. I was frightened. We all were. And I fled. And he was left to face the swords and the darkness alone. Lord, have mercy.
Christ, have mercy.
Shadow of accusation. Inside the high priest's house, the leading priests and the entire high council were trying to find witnesses who would lie about Jesus, so they could put him to death. But even though they found many who agreed to give false witness, there was no testimony they could use. Finally, 2 men came forward who declared,
This man said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days.
Then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus,
Well, aren't you going to answer these charges? What do you have to say for yourself?
But Jesus remained silent. Then the high priest said to him,
I demand, in the name of the living God, tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God.
Jesus replied,
Yes, it is as you say. And in the future, you will see me, the Son of Man, seated in the place of power at God's right hand and coming on the clouds of heaven.
Then the high priest tore his clothing to show his horror and began shouting,
Blasphemy! Why do we need other witnesses? You have all heard his blasphemy. What is your verdict?
Guilty. He deserves to die.
Then they began to spit in Jesus' face and beat him with their fists.
What was I thinking? I expected so much more from myself. Oh, at the table it was so easy. When Jesus talked about being betrayed and arrested and dying, I felt I was angry and protective. I'll fight for you, Lord, I said. I'll die for you. I thought he was just frightened and emotional when he replied,
No, Peter. Before the rooster crows 3 times, you will deny knowing me.
Deny him? I wouldn't have thought it possible. But that was then. Now I know it's true. When it finally came down to it, I couldn't fight for him. I couldn't even die for him. I couldn't even answer the question, yes, I know him, I follow him, and I believe in him. And as they led him away, he looked at me. Those eyes, I expected anger and judgment, but there was only love. In his eyes, there was only ever love. Lord, have mercy.
Christ, have mercy.
Shadow of mockery. The crowd went to Pilate and asked him to release a prisoner as usual. Pilate asked,
"Would you like me to release this king of the Jews?"
Pilate realized by now that the leading priests had arrested Jesus out of envy. But at this point, the leading priests stirred up the crowd to demand the release of Barabbas instead of Jesus. Pilate asked the crowd,
"Then what should I do with this man you call the king of the Jews?"
They shouted back.
Crucify him!
Pilate demanded,
"Why? What crime has he committed?"
but the mob roared even louder.
Crucify him!
So Pilate, anxious to please the crowd, ordered Jesus flogged, then turned him over to the Roman soldiers to be crucified. The soldiers took Jesus into their headquarters and called out the entire battalion. They dressed him in a purple robe and made a crown of long, sharp thorns and put it on his head. Then they saluted him and taunted.
Hail, King of the Jews!
And they beat him on the head with a stick, spit on him, and dropped to their knees in mock worship. When they were finally tired of mocking him, they took off the purple robe and put his own clothes on him again. Then they led him away to be crucified.
I confess to being confused and uncertain, to doubting, especially at the end. I mean, he healed the sick, he raised the dead. The whole nation was eating out of the palm of his hand. And then, suddenly they're shouting, "Crucify him." With all his power, he just stood there. And then, when the soldiers mocked him, he took it all. They stripped his body, torn from the terrible flogging. They pretended to worship him as king with this crown of hard Judean thorns. They hit him. They spat on him. They pulled out his hair and his beard. I mean, how was I supposed to understand this? He could have snuffed them out in a heartbeat. But he didn't. He just let them mock. Lord, have mercy.
Christ, have mercy.
Shadow of crucifixion. Jesus was led out of the city to be crucified. When they came to a place called the Skull, they nailed him to the cross. Alongside him, 2 criminals were also crucified, one to his right, one to his left. It was heard that Jesus said,
Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing.
Jesus said this as the soldiers were gambling for his clothing by throwing dice, as the crowd watched and the leaders, they were scoffing.
He saved others. Let him save himself if he's really God's Messiah, the chosen one.
The soldiers mocked him too by offering him a drink of sour wine. They called out to him,
If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself.
A sign was nailed to the cross above him with these words, This is the King of the Jews. It was at this time that one of the criminals hanging beside him scoffed.
So you're the Messiah, are you? Prove it by saving yourself and us too while you're at it.
But the other criminal protested.
Don't you fear God even as you're dying? We deserve to die for our crimes, but this man hasn't done anything wrong. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom.
And Jesus replied,
I assure you, today you will be with me in paradise.
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they laid him in the tomb?
I was there in the crowd that day when Jesus was crucified. The ring of the hammer striking the nails, the sickening sound of flesh and bone crunching will forever echo in my mind. I can still hear my own voice yelling out insults along with the rest of the crowd, heaping our mockery on the dying Jesus suspended on that cross. Our anger came out of our deep disappointment. Clearly, we had been so wrong about him. The one we had hoped would be our Savior could not even save himself. With his death, my hopes also died, and I hung my head in despair. Lord, have mercy.
Christ, have mercy.
The shadow of death. At noon, darkness fell across the whole land until 3 p.m. Then, at that time, Jesus cried out with a loud voice,
Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani,
which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? When some of the bystanders heard it, they said,
Listen, he's calling for Elijah.
One of them ran and filled a sponge with sour wine, holding it up to him on a stick so that he could drink, saying,
Leave him alone. Let's see whether Elijah will come to take him down.
Then Jesus uttered another loud cry and breathed his last.
My firstborn son, dead. Is this truly what the angel meant when he told me I would be with child? He's dead, and I'm so confused. I know he was God's child, but I nursed him, I clothed him, and I taught him to walk. And I still remember his first smile. He was supposed to be my people's hope. That hope now lays behind a rock. I knew it wouldn't be easy to accept Yahweh's call, but this pain is unbearable and my body cracks in agony. His name will be Emmanuel. He was God with us. Well, then why this death? Why must the hope of our people be lost again? Oh, my son, you spoke. You spoke, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. Well, they don't. Your people, they betrayed you. And yet you forgave them. In your weakest hour, you forgave them, and you loved as you always did. My son, oh, my son, what does it mean when you say it's finished? Well, what is finished? You said you were forsaken. Does that mean your father has forsaken us all? My son, my baby boy, where is the hope you carried and that I held in my arms? Lord, have mercy.
Christ, have mercy.
My king has got scars on his hands. My king has got scars on his hands. His risen blood forevermore. My king has got scars on his hands. My king has got scars on his hands. My king has got scars on his hands. My Lord, my God, I know who you are. I know by the scars on your hands. My king is acquainted with grief. My king is acquainted with grief. He won't recoil when in sorrow I weep. My king is acquainted with grief. My king is the servant of all. My king is the servant of all. He humbly kneels and washes our feet. My king is the slave of us all. My king has got scars on his hands. My king has got scars on his hands. My Lord, my God, I know who you are. the scars on your hands. I know by the scars on your hands. I know by the scars on